This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, it's Tuesday, September 12th, 2023. It's a SIG Node Sidecar working group meeting. Welcome, everybody. I think the first matter of conversation is container termination. So we have a slide deck from Gunjo. Do you want to present? I can make you presenter.
Yes.
Okay, I made you a co-host.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. I just made this slide to make sure that we all are in the same page. So each slide represents the container termination scenario, a specific container termination scenario. So first one is graceful termination. If a container terminates, then that application receive the system signal, and if the application can handle that gracefully and terminate in deadline, which is the termination grace period seconds in past spec, so then we can just terminate gracefully. That is the happy case. And the second case is if the application cannot handle that system within the deadline, or it doesn't handle it at all, then it will receive the CQ signal. So it ensures that the container termination can finish within the termination graceful period seconds. And if the container has pre-stop hook, then the container termination starts with executing the pre-stop hook handler, and then the app receives the system after it finished the pre-stop hook. So I just want to point out that there's the cap, like pod lifecycle sleep action, to delay the app termination to handle the request gracefully, and it also is based on the assumption that container is terminated after the pre-stop hook. So, and the next case, if the container has the pre-stop hook, then the application will get the remaining time. So it may not handle the signal gracefully and get killed by CQ, because pre-stop hook will consume the termination graceful period. And if pre-stop hook takes longer than termination graceful period, then the kubelet will just ignore that pre-stop hook and terminate the container with minimum graceful period, which is 2 seconds. So this is the exceptional case. So we can just say that those scenario as a container termination. Then in terms of pod termination, we can say that there's a moment that the pod is termination requested and kubelet sync start, but each container is guaranteed to have its own termination duration for current implementation. So when you say, so the current behavior with sidecar containers feature gate is enabled, then it will just terminate all container in parallel, and each container can has its own termination period. So if we say that, if someone say that we will terminate sidecars after all regular containers and in reverse order, then to me, the most predictable way is just moving the container termination start time to backward, not changing the termination duration. To me, there's no reason to change each container's termination duration. So in worst case, we will get very longer termination grace period in terms of path, but that is the current behavior. So if we don't want to break the current implementation, I think we need other ways to handle it, like introducing new fields for this. So my proposals are, we can just make each container current path dot termination graceful period seconds applies to each container. So if you want a specific container to have different termination grace period, then we can introduce new field like termination grace period for a container, or other way is we can just introduce the pod level termination period because we don't have it now. So that is the second solution. And third one is, I think each one is independent to each other. So third one is we can introduce the termination policy, like if we want to terminate all containers in parallel or reverse ordered. Those three are my proposals for now.
Great presentation. I think my immediate thought on that is we really need to talk about scenarios rather than what is logical. Because scenario-wise, you have two use cases. First use case is you want container to terminate gracefully, and you're ready to give as much time for this graceful termination as possible. So you basically give like 5 minutes, and then like during these 5 minutes, you expect that everything will complete, and you hope it will complete in like 1 minute, but you still give in 5 just in case. And the second scenario is that you either want pod to finish in certain time, so you give in like 30 seconds. Like in 30 seconds, you have to finish. Like whatever happens, it's done. Or this graceful termination can even be enforced by you by, let's say, node will be gone. Like you have a spot instance in Amazon or like a GKE, and the spot instance will be gone in 30 seconds. So you have 30 seconds to terminate, do whatever you want, but like you don't get any more. So first scenario with please terminate gracefully, and I will give you as much time as possible. This picture fits perfect. So you can terminate main containers and like first sidecar, like sort of like last sidecar, previous sidecar, and like so forth. So this satisfies this scenario very well. However, scenario when you have to terminate in certain time is not satisfied at all. Like, I mean, it is satisfied to the extent, like, I mean, not even satisfied, because you saying that you cannot control how fast pod will terminate. So now you're saying, I'm giving you graceful termination time, but pod can take as much time as it wants, as long as it has enough sidecar containers. So this is I don't think it satisfies this scenario at all. And I think, like, whatever solution we will propose, we need to think about this scenario, like how to swipe both scenarios first, and then second, how well this scenario will be working. So I think proposals that we had on last meeting with SIG term, interrupting pre-stop, satisfy both scenarios, but like it satisfies first scenario in not ideal way. So like you don't get specific order, and you need to think about implementation very carefully. But the second scenario satisfies very well, because for second scenario, you give each container enough time, including sidecars, to terminate, even though like termination period is very short. What do you think?
Actually, I'm not sure about the second scenario. If we use the pre-stop hook for signaling the sidecars to terminate gracefully, then there is an ambiguity about when is the real termination start moment for sidecar container. Like if we start from the kubelet sync start time, or the moment that the pod is termination requested, or the first container starts termination. I'm not sure about the base start time for the termination.
I think all three that you said is pretty much the same time. So when deletion timestamp was set, then like in the closest sync, we will send, like we'll either start pre-stops or SIG terms for all the containers, including sidecars. And then when all the main containers are gone, we will send a SIG term to rest of sidecar containers.
So what I am saying is that the current behavior doesn't start the container termination from the time it sets the deletion timestamp. So if we move that way, then we have to change the current behaviors, so it will be the breaking change.
No,
I
I'm not
think.
suggesting change the behavior. So whenever deletion timestamp is set, we will start terminating of all the containers. It's just like it may be like not immediate, but like it's very close to that deletion timestamp equal now, right?
But the deletion timestamp is set by Kube API server, I think. Actually, it doesn't matter, but if we want to do that, then we have to change the code, because the code doesn't care about the deletion timestamp. It only cares about its own termination process. So we have to pass the termination duration by calculating the deletion timestamp and paths termination period seconds, and pass that termination duration to container runtime, which is not the current implementation. So that is the reason I say that this is the breaking change.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm just suggesting keep the current logic of deleting everything at the same time as we delete now. But the only difference is sidecars will receive a SIG term when all the main containers are completed, even if they're still running pre-stop hook.
But then how can you calculate the deadline for sidecar? When does it start?
I think it's the same time as the initial, like there's one pod level termination grace period seconds. And if your main pods use it all up, then sorry, your sidecars get the minimum of 2 seconds.
So it means that we have to make one baseline, which is not the current implementation.
Yeah, I glanced at the current implementation. I think async calls that like a kill pod or whatever, and then basically they run and go routines with a wait group, and they all like run the pre-stop hook, and then end up calling the stop container or whatever. But yeah, like in there we have to wait basically to serialize the termination order, and if things, basically if your main containers take too long, you may not get any time, which it's not ideal, but it's sort of something you can fix on the user side as well. Like I think like one problem with when we're looking at on the screen is if you have like this Kyverno or something enforcing like a termination grace period of 30 seconds on pods, and I'm a malicious user, like now I can extend the lifetime of my pods. I just start stacking in sidecar containers, and now you can't, I put 100 of them in there, and now I have like 3,000 seconds for my workload to run, and I'll just run it as a sidecar, and I can run for much longer, basically. So it's some side effects of multiplying that pod termination grace period. I don't think you can change the semantics of the pod termination grace period, really.
Yes, but for me, the pod termination grace period is actually not the pod termination duration, but it just ensures that each container has that amount of termination duration period. We can interpret like that way, I think. Then there's no problem.
So I'm looking at the docs, and so when it describes that value, it's the optional duration in seconds for the pod to terminate gracefully. And so to me, it's a pod level construct.
Okay.
Like the entire pod has to be gone in that second. And Sergey's like spot interruption, I think, is the really good use case of you get 30 seconds and the machine's going down, like we're taking it away from you. And so finishing that time or not, your processes are getting killed because we're shutting the VM off. And that sort of works. And then like the other case of like if you could just multiply that out, like I don't know if they're like multi-tenant Kubernetes users that sort of enforce like, all right, you're out of time, let me kill your pod. Like, but if you can all of a sudden just add sidecars to multiply that pod termination out, like you can start to abuse that. I mean, I guess they could kill it with a 0 grace period, maybe, but just work around both sides. But
yes, but technically that is the current behavior because we cannot ensure that the pod is terminated within that termination grace period because kubelet may not start its termination immediately after it requests the pod deletion. So
yeah, I guess, but I mean, hopefully between your two left arrows there, it's a really small amount of time. I mean, yeah, there's some period of time there, but
so if there is logically inconsistency, then it is hard to implement that. So yes, that is what I'm saying. When we decide to implement that way, then we have to make some breaking change, which is very little, but yes, we need to do that, I think.
What kind of breaking change? I didn't get it.
Like current behavior is if the kubelet sync starts after like kubelet is delayed to terminate container after 5 seconds, then it will get more 5 seconds termination duration period. But if we decide to terminate container from deletion timestamp, then it will be the breaking change for the users. Like before, we will get 35 seconds of termination grace period if the kubelet is delayed for some reason. But after that change, we will get 30 seconds of pod pod termination duration seconds, and the container will get 25 seconds of termination duration time.
I'm not suggesting to change that. What, like, ideally it should be same behavior, but we need to distribute it across sidecars and main container somehow. So the only question is how we distribute it, and I think we'll always, like, in distributed systems, you'll always have some delays and like inconsistencies in timestamps. But I think what is implemented right now working for most scenarios. So even if there is a delay, then I haven't heard many complaints about this delay yet. I don't know if you have any real use cases where this delay was important.
Yes, the current implementation is okay for many users. So, but if we change, it depends on how to change the behavior, but
I don't think we want to change it. Like, we just want, like, so initial deletion will be the same. If sidecar has a pre-stop hook, we will start executing this pre-stop hook. And then we will send a SIG term at the moment when all the main containers are gone. And pod will be killed no matter what when graceful termination is completed. So there is like no inconsistency here.
but pre-stop hook doesn't, if the container termination doesn't start just after the pre-stop hook, then it will be the problem for this cap, like this cap pod lifecycle sleep action is based on the assumption that app termination starts immediately after the pre-stop hook.
So I read that one. I think that one was really about just an easier way of adding a sleep as a pre-stop hook. And so it was, the primary driver is that so that when you delete the pod, the endpoints sort of get dropped basically, so you quit routing new traffic to it. And it's just so you can use a like distro-less container and don't even have to put a sleep in there or something. Basically, it's to stop routing traffic immediately upon deletion, which already occurs, but to still give the container and pod a few more seconds to continue to try to handle existing connections, basically.
Yes, that is the main motivation, but in terms of its semantics, it just delays the app termination. It is just for delaying the app termination, but if we separate the pre-stop from container termination, then it will not work.
So you mean if somebody will decide to use sleep pre-stop hook for sidecar, then it will behave differently. That's what you say.
Yes.
And I think it's fine. I mean, yes, we changing the semantic, and I think this is the main question for API approvers. If we change this semantic for all pre-stop hooks for sidecars, is it acceptable? Alternative is to implement some other means, like maybe instead of pre-stop, something else, like have a new lifecycle hook for sidecars, or introduce some new signal for sidecars, or maybe send two SIG terms.
I guess if you just change the and just say well, SIG term for sidecars comes after the pre-stop hook finishes or after all the main containers complete, whichever occurs last. Does that solve it? Because then if your sleep extends further in the pre-stop hook, you'll still get it when it's finished. Basically, sidecars can always assume if they got a SIG term, the main containers are dead, which is all they really want to know. Which is sort of the useful piece of information that you want to know if you're a sidecar. And then it would work with sleeps or whatever.
Yeah, it may work, but it may delay the. So it may, like, if you implement some generic sidecar like service mesh, you want to know when termination started, but then you also want to know all the main containers are gone because you are not useful after all containers are gone. So whatever your pre-stop duration, you want to interrupt it and get out of it.
I mean, I guess for those guys, just say, well, don't use a pre-stop hook, or sorry, don't use a sleep pre-stop hook for those cases, right? If you're like, we're using pre-stop to tell your sidecar.
Oh, you're saying sleep will be a very special case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're using sleep. I mean, the reason is to give your container more time to process existing connections. And for a sidecar, like, use it if you want to. It probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense because by the time we send you, like, we're already delaying your SIG term anyway. Like, we've got more information than you do. We know all the containers are dead, basically.
Yeah, that's maybe debatable, like what the semantic of sleep will be, whether it ignores SIG term or not, it doesn't ignore SIG term.
I agree. It's a complication. We're sort of constrained by the fact that you have like the pod level termination grace period. You don't want to extend that for reasons. And then, but you do want to try to give sidecar containers as much notice as possible, but they also need to know when all the main containers are dead so they can actually quit early. It's a little tricky.
Yeah, I remember reading a bug, but I don't remember the exact behavior. If you trying to delete pod with graceful termination of like 5 minutes, and then you said it's too long, it's taking too long, and you start another deletion with like 1 second, then I think what you expect to have is pod being deleted in 1 second. So I think you would expect that SIG term from second deletion will interrupt sleep. Or maybe just wait for SIG queue. I don't know. But there are also scenarios that we need to think about.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
And I think that I said it before in the comment. We had to care about the restart scenarios of sidecar containers. So if the pre-stop hook starts before the actual container termination, then we may have to restart the sidecar container after the pre-stop hook. So that would be one problem, I think.
So Gunjo, are you convinced that this scenario needs to be satisfied, that like short termination period with a given limited time?
I think that if someone wants to terminate sidecar containers after all regular containers, it means that it needs more time. It essentially needs more time, so there's no way to just terminate in the same termination duration seconds with using the sidecar container. I think users should know that they will get longer termination duration seconds if we want their sidecars terminate after all regular containers. So I just want to make a way for user to just change each container's termination duration seconds. I think this is the clear way?
Yeah, I think we can make it in future. We can make it work.
And
But
my
we need to implement it right now in this. We already have one termination period override. In a liveness probe, you can specify grace period override. So if your liveness probe failed, then we can apply a different termination period for the entire pod. So this is implemented so you can say that if liveness probe failed, it's a catastrophic failure, and we don't know how to gracefully terminate. You need to just kill the pod completely. So I think in the same vein, we may be introducing some per container overrides in future. But I think for sidecar specifically, proposal with pre-stop being interrupted with SIG term may work fine for all the scenarios.
What I'm worrying is that if we change the semantic, then it is hard to I'm just worrying about the inconsistency with the regular containers, but let's see how reviewers or approvers think.
Okay.
They will give us the review.
But are you convinced that this may work for all the cases? Like, are you fine with that, or you have a very strong feeling about it? Because like if we are not together on that, like it's hard to argue with advocate for that.
Actually, I'm not convinced about changing these. I'm not sure how to implement this container termination if we don't assign termination grace period for each container. That is my main concern.
Do you have specific sidecar container in mind that you have problems to implement? Because I talked to Istio people and they said like even today behavior is fine with them. If you'll make it better by separating two signals, then it will be ideal for them, and they done, like they happy. For logging, I haven't talked to anybody yet. I've been involved in the logging a lot, so I think I can represent it to some extent, but maybe I need to speak with current maintainers. But I think I can convince them that this behavior will be working for them. Do you have any sidecars in mind that you want to implement and you don't know how with this behavior?
I just don't know how to implement these container termination ordering without making the base start time for that. Like, you think that we have to make the base start time for pod termination?
I mean, we don't want, do you mean, I don't think we want to implement ordering right now. Do you think you need ordering for some scenarios that you have in mind?
I may don't understand what you're saying. So we are planning to implement the termination ordering for sidecars, and I'm worrying about that implementation. That is my concern.
Wait, are we planning to do termination ordering? That's where I think we are not aligned. Matthias, what is in your cap? What is in your PR? Is there a termination ordering?
Yes, yeah. But I mean, it can change. No, no worries. I think we said we need it for beta, the termination ordering, no?
Yes,
Yeah,
I think
I'm on the same page with Gunjo. Like, how do we implement ordering? I thought we will just start terminating at one time, and then when all main containers are done, we will we will send SIG term to all the sidecars. So I thought that we agreed on that. I guess I need to read carefully.
Yeah, but I think that was okay for alpha. Let's reopen the cap.
to me, the hardest point is that when we decide to terminate sidecars after all regular containers, then how much time we have to assign the sidecars to terminate, how to calculate that time. Is it start from the first regular container terminate start, or the pod termination starts, or kubelet sync start?
I think overall pod termination shouldn't change. Like whatever it was, what was the behavior before, it should be the same for overall pod termination period. Todd, I remember you drawing this picture. You drew this picture last meeting.
Mhm.
What is your recollection of how we want to implement it?
So I thought we were doing the pre-stop for everything, and then SIG term once the main containers. But I also thought we were doing the ordering as well. And I was going to read the KEP because I thought I read language in there that's.
So in like multiple places in the CAPE, we say that we need ordering for beta. Yeah, even in the graduation criteria. First point, implement proper termination ordering.
Ordering may be different. Like ordering may be between sidecars or ordering between main containers and sidecars.
It's explained in details in a different place.
Yeah, my worry here is the same as Gunjo. Like, I don't know how to properly implement ordering and how to, like, how long to give to each sidecar once we send a SIG term.
Yeah, I think, like if you had to do it today, like I'm looking at this kill container method, like you probably end up, with some sort of state, something that maintains state object that you pass through the kill container method so that they can each update, and then everything sort of waits on it. So we can kind of get the correct ordering and correct timing. But it's solely to sort of handle the case of I'm trying to shut down the entire pod and I need to serialize the termination of these things. The only issue I've seen is like kill containers called in a few other places, and in those cases you just wouldn't pass that in which case the container just gets killed. Like in GC containers, you don't care about ordering. Somewhere else.
But I think if we say that the ordering is not guaranteed if you take too long to terminate, like you could get like a SIG term before a SIG kill before getting the SIG term, right? If one of the sidecars takes too long to finish, or even the main container, if it takes too long, then the sidecars will get a SIG kill at the end. But I don't think I have a problem with this.
So just implementing pod termination ordering between the main containers and the sidecar containers, sort of as two separate sets. I'm wondering if just that complexity is enough that it's not much more to implement sidecar container ordering. I don't know.
No. There should be the ordering between sidecars as well. Yes, but I think the main issue for Gunjo is that if we take too long, then we might not get the SIG term before the SIG kill. But that's okay, I think. No, I mean, at the end we have a hard limit, which is the grace period. So
we generally need to have a signal when a pod termination started. So we need to tell sidecars that you may start cleaning up now because you may be killed soon. But then SIG term ordering, I don't know how long between SIG terms you need to give each sidecar. Even if you do it in reverse order, like how long do you give like couple percent of what's left?
No. I would only send the SIG term when the previous one has finished.
But
It's
we
like
have to.
okay. Let's imagine we have like an airplane, which will hit the floor in 30 seconds, and we have like 5 passengers to jump with parachute.
Okay.
Well, if one takes too long to jump, the others won't have a chance to jump, and it will crash with the airplane. So I mean, for me, that's the termination.
So in this analogy, when airplane start failing, we tell everybody start putting on parachutes, and they already did. So now instead
Yes,
of like
but they
saying,
cannot
you can
jump,
all
and
together,
they cannot jump. If you see the jump and before they hit the floor is like the graceful termination of a pod. Okay, the only difference is that the next one can only jump when the previous one has touched the floor with the parachute. Okay, bon, bad analogy, but
Yeah, the problem is whether airplane has one door or multiple doors. Like, why would we wait? So if one sidecar is implemented poorly, then it will, yeah, maybe it wanted to delay everything.
I mean, if it's implemented poorly, too bad for him. Huh? And I think it's easier to explain and easier to document than saying that, yeah, but in this case, we will add like this amount of seconds because if someone does not implement correctly the shutdown and it takes too long, then it will delay the rest. And
yeah, I can see that. In this case, if you have login container, then it try to send as much information, clear all the buffers as soon as possible. But then when all the main container is done, it knows that no more containers. So it will take another like couple seconds to send all the rest of the data that it accumulated during shutdown. And then Istio will be the next, like first container, and it will terminate immediately. So yeah, I can see it helping. Yeah. And then you don't need to, I mean, yeah, you don't need to give any special handling for that. Okay, yeah, I can see it working. It's great. But we still need to tell them when pod termination started, you need to tell everybody. Like everybody needs to know about this happening. And then when main container is completed, then we start sending SIG terms, even if they still running a pre-stop.
yeah, no, yeah, I agree. Yes.
And I wonder if users can use the pre-stop hook to like work around these badly behaving sidecars, like sleep for 10 seconds and then kill -9 on whatever, kill all -9 on whatever process inside there as their pre-stop hook basically. And you can sort of implement whatever you want, I think, that way. Like if you wanted to give, all right, container A gets 10, like sidecar A gets, or like in this case, sidecar A gets 20 seconds, sidecar 2 gets 10 seconds or whatever. You can change your values and basically use your pre-stop book, send your own SIG term basically, and send your own SIG kill in your pre-stop book. It's kind of ugly, but like you could work around some stuff for these badly behaving sidecars until you get around to fixing the code.
Yeah, so within this signal is not necessarily needed. You can just implement whatever logic you want and done with it.
Yeah, in your pre-stop.
Yeah, the only complication is it's a scenario of login container and Istio, like and service mesh. So login wants a couple more seconds, and it wants network to be up. How does it tell Istio that it needs to be up for 2 seconds? That's the only complication. And I wanted to ignore that. I wanted to say that like it's not our problem. Like we're not solving this problem. But I think Matthias have a point. There is only one door.
But it's true, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my suggestion is in conjunction with this. It's just if you have a badly behaving sidecar, like you have an escape hatch of use your pre-stop hook to manually kill it. And like we'll still serialize termination ordering, and that way you can sort of time bound how long it takes for that sidecar to end.
Yeah, in future we can have per container termination period, right? And override it to whatever value we want. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Gunjo, do you have problems with this approach? Like, I think this will be easy to implement. You don't need to wait for a specific time. You just wait for completion. After SIG term, you just say like, it's not being restarted any longer. It's done. And you go to the next sidecar.
I'm not sure I understand what you are saying. So you're saying that pre-stop hook approach should be applied? Like pre-stop hook should be executed after all regular containers are after the path termination requested?
Yes.
Yes, but for what about the restart behavior of the container? We can just ignore the pre-stop hook. If the sidecar container crash during the path termination, then how can you handle that? The pre-stop hook is already executed, but container should be restarted. Then what should we do?
I didn't get it. Sorry.
So the thing is, once we have this pre-stop hook, a container is never restarted, right? Today.
Pre-stop means that container termination starts. So
there is no more restart.
Yes.
Okay.
Almost said, yeah, like it's don't crash, basically. Like if you get a
Don't crash.
You crash, you're not gonna get restarted. It seems reasonable. Like we'll
actually we need this one if we want to use Todd's termination using the pre-stop hook. Because imagine if we kill a sidecar before it get the SIG term or SIG kill, using a sleep in the pre-stop hook and then sending our own, then we don't want the kubelet to restart the sidecar because we want it to kill it.
So if the container has pre-stop handler, then we don't restart it in termination period, right?
Yes, I would say yes.
I think it's consistent with like everything else about sidecars. It's best effort. We try to keep it running, and like if your sidecar starts failing, we don't stop everything else anyway, right? If your sidecar is just repeatedly crashing, we don't stop the main containers. It's sort of the same thing to me. that there are situations where if your sidecar behaves badly, it's not going to be running. And if it shuts down during termination or crashes during termination, it's not going to, we're not going to restart it because we're in the process of shutting down anyway. I think it makes sense.
But what about if the termination grace period is too long, like 30 minutes, then one of the sidecar may crash during that amount of time, 30 minutes.
I think it could still happen. I think even with a short time period, like if you've so your suggestion is don't send the pre-stop. Like the downside of that is that your sidecars get sort of no notification of the pod is shutting down, and when they get the pre-stop, basically they can assume that main containers are all shut down already. Not only that, main containers not previously started the sidecar.
I think this is very complicated problem.
Yeah, but again, if you want like a graceful shutdown of 30 minutes, I mean, right? Once we start the pod shutdown, we stop sending traffic to it and everything, right? So.
Yeah, example that Ronald gave last week when we were discussing graceful termination, they're running some driver installation or uninstallation, so it may take a while. So this pod may gracefully terminate for 30 minutes legitimately. They're uninstalling some drivers on the machine.
Yeah, but do you need a sidecar for that?
And if you have login sidecars and it's supposed to be working all this time, so the way you implement the login containers this way, case you on pre-stop, you say like, oh, maybe I will be terminated soon, so let me send off all the buffers. And then it went into this mode of sending all the logs immediately without like buffering it without buffering too much. So I think it's fine. And then when driver installation completed, then you being terminated immediately because you receive a SIG term. The problem with that is typically you give this containers a very long time to terminate, like let's say 30 minutes, but then if driver uninstallation took only 15 minutes, you want it to complete, like you don't want to wait for a whole 30 minutes. So you want sidecars to extend it to insignificant amount of time instead of for the whole duration.
So, guys, your concern is like you have a long grace period, and Istio crashes right after that grace period starts, basically. And since it's a sidecar, we're not going to restart it. And there's something else after it, like the logging container, that needs it to be able to actually communicate, get its logs off. In that case, the logging container is just going to fail.
Yeah, I think we need to document this case saying like, this is what the side effect of this will be.
Yeah, but today without the sidecars, is it even guaranteed to restart?
No, nothing will restart after graceful termination.
Yeah, anyways, nothing will restart anyways.
Yeah.
It's no worse than right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a couple more questions. I think Todd is from you.
Okay.
I posted some answers. I think for first one, we discussed a bug from like 2 meetings back, and we decided we need to have a test written for that.
So I looked at that note, and I thought it was only talking about, or maybe it was a bug. sorry, maybe I didn't read the bug. I looked at the sidecar meeting notes, and I thought it was only talking about like if the startup hook never was successful or something.
Yeah, we already have this problem with sidecars implemented differently. So yeah, it's a good idea to define a behavior and test it.
Yeah.
So I think it should be one of the issues we need to track. And then for second question, yeah, definitely yes, and we have a test for this.
All right. Yeah, I got those late yesterday afternoon. I did not know the answer off the top of my head. I can let's see. I can write a test for that first case if it's not done already.
No, it's not. Thank you. Yeah, we only have 3 minutes till the next meeting, so I think we can finish now. Thank you. So Matthias, you will clean up the
Yes. Now I know what to write, and yeah,
Okay.
I will do it like quickly and just send you so you can review.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.